Sage Wanderer coming at you from Mineral Wells, Texas. So something interesting about Mineral Wells is we have a haunted high-rise hotel here that was one of those health spa things from the Victorian era, and it's been abandoned for decades, and it's haunted. So you can Google the Haunted Baker Hotel in Mineral Wells, and know that I live pretty close to there, close enough to do my laundry here. So I'm in Mineral Wells doing my laundry. Sometimes I go to Weatherford, sometimes I go to Mineral Wells. But I wanted to talk with you guys because it's been a few days since I spoke with y'all. And the reason is I've been feverishly prepping. I've been busily prepping and putting all of my efforts towards making sure that I am self-sufficient and capable of isolation for up to 2 months. Why? Because in case you didn't get the note, there's a pandemic on. Now, if you're a fan of this channel, you know that I gave you some soft but stern warnings to go ahead and prep and get some supplies put up and buy things that you normally eat. Just buy, shelf-stable things like canned goods and whatnot that you are part of your regular diet. If you had the money and you wanted to spend money on long-term prepper food, like freeze-dried food, thank you for playing. Sorry if I scared you with the thank you for playing, because it's too late. It's too late if you're going to try to get prepper food, because from what I'm hearing, it is sold out and backlogged, and it's going to be a 4-week plus delivery. And some people are promising deliveries, and they don't have the food from what I'm hearing. So the ship has sailed for the long-term prepper food. But in this kind of scenario where you're looking at potentially 60 to 90 days of self-isolation to prevent yourself from getting it, or mandatory isolation, they're doing that in 70,000 people are quarantined, and martial law in certain areas of Italy has been declared, and people are locked down. And if you try to run one of their little roadways to go to town to get some more food, you will be shot. And in China, they've welded people inside of their apartments, and there's a video out there where you can hear people go out on their balconies, and they're all just crying and moaning and screaming. It sounds like the weeping and wailing and gnashing of teeth that's talked about in the Bible, describing hell as weeping and wailing and gnashing of teeth. And you can hear that in a video online in downtown Wuhan, where people have been locked in their apartment buildings for weeks now, and they're starving to death, and they're going crazy from being locked up and isolated and not having the things that they need. So it's not in America to that degree yet. Or is it? Don't. So I think the kind of not so well kept secret is that in America, it's jumped containment. The virus has jumped containment in America, and it is running rampant. It's just not being reported. Why? Because the CDC is not testing people. You can't have new cases of coronavirus if you don't test for coronavirus. But from what I'm hearing, there are multiple instances of people who came back from China with symptoms of the disease and then spread it amongst friends and family, and they spread it, and so on. Remember the old AIDS commercial? And so on, and so on, and so on. If you don't, you won't know what I'm talking about. But yeah, it's called exponential growth. And it's not addition. It's not even multiplication. It's exponential math. It's like the old deal of would you rather take a penny a day for a year, doubled every day, or would you rather take $1 million up front? Most people go for the $1 million, but if you know exponential math, you know that there's a lot more money in the last 3 days of the doubling process of the last 3 days than there is in the whole $1 million there. That you'll get multiple $1 million just in the last 3 days of exponential math. It's times itself, times itself, times itself, and it just goes on and on. And this is what you're looking at with this very infectious disease. One person could be responsible for infecting, through multiple passings of this disease, to tens of thousands, if not millions of people. One lady gave it to 97 people. If they just gave it to 3 people, and they gave it to 3 people, and they gave it to 3 people, you can see how quickly things get out of control. And a lot of people are talking about how it's not deadly in America. It's not deadly in civilized countries right now because the cases and the numbers of really sick people are very small. But when you get to the point that they're having in Wuhan, and now you're seeing it in Italy and Iran, well, for instance, in Iran, the minister of health there actually kind of started showing symptoms and breaking out in hot sweats, and now he's been confirmed to have the coronavirus, and he was on TV to tell everybody everything's okay and it's contained while he himself was sick. So this is getting out of control, and what happens is when your hospitals and your infrastructure gets depleted and your health workers all get sick with it and there's no one to take care of anyone, that's when you get to the pandemic and catastrophic conditions that you're finding in don't worry, I don't have it, I'm just clearing my throat. You get to the pandemic levels that you're in, the emergency levels that you're having in China right now. And it could easily get out of control in America. You could get hot spots like Wuhan, LA, for instance, New York, any places where people are piled on top of each other and they can't get away from each other. People who live in high-rise apartment complexes, which are very much like the cruise ship environment, where they're all kind of sharing the same air, and it's, even though they're separated by walls, there's really not. I mean, this virus, any place you breathe, and it just floats on the air with your breath, and it can land anywhere. If it lands on a surface, it's going to stay live for 4 or 5 days on that surface. So if somebody's got it and they walk through the hallway in your apartment complex, and then you walk down the hallway in the apartment complex, even moments or even minutes behind them, you could breathe it in the air. It's going to be on the handrail. It's going to be on the doorknob if they breathed in the hallway. I mean, it's super contagious, and that's the problem. You can get reinfected with it. That's another thing you don't see with any kind of normal flu. You can get reinfected with this after you get well, supposedly. Another thing is, for 2 weeks before you show symptoms, and from 2 weeks after you quit showing symptoms, you're still contagious. And so I understand it. It's hard to understand this, wrap my mind around it, but people can reinfect themselves. That's why if you get this and you get better, you better sterilize your environment so that you don't reinfect yourself. Crazy, right? I didn't think that was possible, but this is what they're telling us is happening. And the second time around, it's deadly. It's way more deadly the second time than the first time. So what am I doing? I'm making sure I got extra top ramen. I don't have a lot of money, but I know how to prep on a budget. I do have some long-term storage food I brought with me from Oregon. And, so I've got a little bit of that, but it's probably 7 to 10 days worth. And I think that you need to be prepared. Well, the people in Wuhan, they welded them in their apartments a month ago. So they're starving to death. And I don't see any reports of anybody distributing food to these people that are literally welded their doors shut in their apartment buildings and are not allowed to come out. If you're caught on the street, it's brutal. They'll beat you down and stuff you in a wagon and make you disappear. Wagon, I mean like a police van. And so, it's the people that are telling you, oh, this is no big deal, it's just like the flu, are idiots. They're not watching, they're not paying attention. If you are of a high intellect, you can understand maybe a little bit of Latin, or at least have an advanced vocabulary, then I suggest you find the YouTube channels where you have doctors who are PhDs. Some of them are retired virologists, and they have taken this on as a project, and I'm plugged into about 4 or 5 of these people. I guess I should share some of their videos, but it's not for everyone. It's a bit like watching paint dry. But when you listen to these people talk, many of them, their final conclusion, and when they reach their final end with all of their mathematical equations, the number that keeps popping up is 80 to 100 million dead. Okay, that's way worse than the flu. 80 to 100 million people dead. Well, we can look on the bright side in a few areas. One, it doesn't seem like kids are getting it. Kids may be immune. So if you have kids under the age of 17, then they're probably going to be okay, which is actually different than almost any other disease, which targets old people and the very young. This one seems to target males between the age of 30 and up, and the older you are, the worse your chances are. And if you have, and females who are non-smokers actually are not, they're not immune, but they get it to a less violent degree. The ones, it seems like 62% of the complications are male patients. And And also, if you smoke, you're at a higher risk. Or if you have asthma, or if you already have COPD, or if you're fighting cancer or other immune system, things that attack your immune system. So this is a very, very deadly disease. To survive this without getting it, if you can just stay clean and not get it, I'm hoping for that, because I have the ability to isolate myself. But I warned my sister that I may have to isolate myself from her at some point, because she goes to work, right? And her son goes to school. But I think if it starts to become a public health concern, they'll close the schools. But by then, it may have really spread. Because here's the thing. You can spread it for 2 weeks and not feel sick. And there's a certain percentage of people who never show symptoms, and they're just super spreaders. They just go around as carriers, spreading it to other people. So this is serious. This is probably the big one. It's a big one. This is something that I didn't prep enough for. I got a couple of gas masks. Each one has one canister. And I left all my extra canisters in Oregon. But hey, that's good news for my family in Oregon, because they got a couple of gas masks with about 25 canisters, which are good for 4 hours each. That will protect you against this kind of stuff. The mask that you see everybody wearing, in Asia, you can't find those. I think, and when you can find them, people are price gouging and selling them for way higher prices. So anyway, I've got some stuff to take care of today. I've been super busy. Don't worry about Sage, except I haven't been working, and I don't intend to work, because my job is delivering food to people that are homesick from work. And I just don't think it's smart right now. I think it's jumped containment. It's out there, and I won't say they're covering it up, but the stock market dove 2 days at almost 900 points a day. The 2-day worst fall in the history of the stock market, the worst 2 days in the history of the stock market, is what I'm hearing when I tip into some of the financial channels. So they're already jumping out of the stock market and putting their money into gold and things like that to protect it against the financial ramifications of this virus. So I thought I would make this video to let you know what I've been up to, and to encourage you to be up to the same sort of thing. Prepping on a budget, 10 for $1, Knowles seasoned rice pasta packages. Each one of those is a meal. So you can get, like 4 meals for one person for $1. Top ramen noodles. We all know those are the standby for musicians in poverty. But you can fix those up by adding stuff to them, season it up, spike it up, whatever. This stuff keeps for a good long time. But keep in mind, whatever you buy, you will have to eat, unless you want to just be out the money and throw away the food at some point. But I'm going to eat it before the expiration dates come up. So I try to buy the things that I eat, like canned soup and, jerky and trail mix and nuts, all this stuff, dried fruit. It keeps for a really long time, but you will have to eat it, or eventually you'll lose it, because it's not like freeze-dried food that is good for possibly forever. But anyway, put this stuff in mouse-proof containers. Put some mouse traps down in case they can get them before they even try to get into your stuff, and keep the rodents and the bugs out. And, there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to put up 30 days of food at least. But I'm trying to put up 3 months. And, it's just the basics. I got to keep myself alive, right? That's my number one priority, because I have nobody else. And plus I'm prepping for my sister too. I'm trying to encourage her to get things, but I'll feed them as well, because that's the kind of guy I am. And I need to put up more than I need, because I'll feed other people if push comes to shove. But I would suggest preparing for self-isolation, or even mandatory, isolation by the government. That they'll have roadblocks up. They won't let you leave. It's probably coming. You think I'm crazy? Look what's going on in Italy. Look what's going on in Iran. Stuff's getting crazy. All right. You guys take care of yourself. Make sure you have plenty of food and water and medicine on hand. And God help us all through this disaster.